Welcome back, friends. Today it's kind of a gloomy, rainy day here in North Texas, so I thought we would process a little brass. Kind of running short on bullets and ammo in general. I guess during the toilet paper apocalypse here, there's two things we're missing. That's ammunition and toilet paper. Don't know why, but we'll get through it. So I thought we'd go ahead and try to get ahead on our brass work. We're going to be using the Frankfort Arsenal 7-liter wet tumbler, the Frankfort media separator, the Frankfort dryer, also known as a food dehydrator. You probably got one in your pantry there somewhere you're not using. The Frankfort case tumbler for dry media, and then I think we got a little sifter here we got from them as well. There's nothing wrong with any of the other equipment. I just happened to, I knew I wanted this particular tumbler, and they kind of had a bundle going on when I bought it. So I bought everything from one distributor. I paid no freight and no tax, and it was a good deal. So that's how I ended up with all the Frankfort stuff. Like I said, nothing wrong with the other things, but this is what works for me. Now, there's not any black magic to this. People do it a lot of different ways. I do have a couple tips I can share with you, and then maybe in the comments below you can share some tips with me. So let's go ahead and get some of this brass loaded up, and let's get started real quick. Okay, I've dumped some of the brass here in our, they call this a media separator, the quick and easy Frankfort Arsenal media separator. And what I use it for is just trying to get some of the surface dirt off of here before I put it in the tumbler. Obviously, the cleaner the brass that's going in here, it's going to be cleaner coming out. That way your liquid and your cleaning agent isn't going to have to work quite as hard. The only thing I do here is I just sift it kind of like this, because I get my brass from 3 locations: an indoor range, which is pretty clean, and then an outdoor range up in North Texas, which has some real fine black gravel to it, so there's a lot of gravel in the casings. And then my gun club down in East Texas, which is kind of red sandy soil, and it's been kind of muddy down there lately, so a lot of the brass I picked up was really yucky. Now, the only thing I process is 38 special and 9mm. This kind of gives me a chance to look and see if I've got any errant 40 mil cases in here, or 380 snuck in or something like that. But the main thing is to get, you see there's some sand and everything. I don't see any gravel right now, but I assure you we're going to end up with some gravel before we're done. So I'll do a little sifting here, and then we're going to put it into our tumbler. We've already got our 5 pounds of stainless steel pins in here, and then we're going to fill the water up to about here, and then put our secret solution in there to make this good and clean. Now, the reason I picked this particular version of the Frankfort Arsenal tumbler, this is the 7-liter version. They do make a smaller one, but I like to process a decent amount of brass at a time. The most I've put in here has been 14 pounds, and a pound equates, a pound of 9mm brass is about 113 rounds, so you're talking about 1,580 rounds, something like that. They say you can put 1,500 rounds of 223 in here. I would like to see that myself with liquid in it and weigh it, because when I put the 14 pounds of 9mm brass in here with the water and the pins, it weighed 31 pounds, and they say the maximum you want to run this at is 30 pounds. So I went a pound over, and it seemed to work just fine, but I know for a fact that you're not going to have any problem processing 1,500 rounds of 9mm in here. So let's go ahead and get some brass in here, get it loaded up, and then let's take it outside and get the water and our secret solution in there. Well, sure, I'm glad we did that pre-sift on that brass, because some of that stuff was dirty. Now all we got to do is, we already had our pins in there, so we're just going to fill this up with water to about right there. And then we're going to add our secret cleaning solutions. Very expensive secret formula. You're not to share it with anybody now. I just want you to know. You might be able to guess what it is. It's pretty popular everywhere. And that is Dawn dishwashing liquid. I give it a 1-second burst. 1001. That should be enough. And then, oh, this too, super secret Lemmy Shine. And we'll give it a tablespoon And this cap is, yeah, that's my chickens you hear in the background there. In addition to goats, we got chickens here. So that is ready to go. Make sure you get this cap on. Make sure there's not a pin stuck in this rubber seal here, because when you close it, it'll seep out a little water. And there it is, ready for the tumbler. Now there's a couple things I want to talk about on this tumbler before we set this thing to spinning. Some things I like about this a lot is, number one, it has this built-in timer, and that's great. Of course, if you don't have one, you could always use something like this, but this makes it great. This thing is heavy duty. Like I said, this thing will tumble 30 pounds with no problem. Also, if you're an apartment dweller, this tumbler here is rubber insulated on the inside, so it's a lot quieter than some of the other tumblers that are out there. Still makes a little bit of noise, but you can get by with it in an apartment. Now before you just set this thing to tumbling and take off like I'm fixing to do, it's probably a good idea to run this thing. Just run it for a minute or so. Make sure you don't have any leakage on either side, and then if you don't, then you're good to go. So I usually run mine for a couple hours. It probably doesn't need that much, but a couple hours is a perfect time for me to jump on my bike and get in, 33, 35 mile bike ride, and then when I come back, my brass is ready to go to the next step. So let's put this baby on 2 hours, let it spin, and I'll see you back here in a couple hours. And just like that, we're back from our 34 mile bike ride, and we've got clean brass. Now what we need to do is swap out this cap here, get it off, nice tight fit for this one. And then we're going to take our nylon strainer out there too. I don't have a sink inside the shop, but if you have a sink at home, like in a laundry room or something, it's a perfect place to rinse this stuff out. We're gonna have to run some water through there, get all this soap out, and then we'll pour it through here to make sure we don't lose any pins. So let's get outside and get that rinsed out. Now we want to get all this nasty water out of here. Don't want to lose any pins though. Look how dirty and nasty that water is. Oh man, here, get a look at that. Okay, get that out of there, and you don't have to worry about any casings falling out. They won't go out through that. And then, we'll catch a few pins. See, there's a few there. I tried to find a metal strainer, but there's not really any thin enough to capture those metal pins. I'll probably have to do this probably 3 times. We want to get all this soap out. Like I said, if you have a sink, this is awesome. So let me do this 2 or 3 times, and we'll get back to some clean water. Well, we're on our final rinse here, and if you don't get this soap off of here, then you're just going to end up with spots on your brass when you dry it. So pretty important you make sure you get clear water running through here. Like I said, boy, what I wouldn't give for a sink. And on this last one, we're going to dump it over. We'll get a few more pins out, but we want to get as much water as we can out of here. And then you can see I probably only got a dozen pins in there. And I don't see any soap residue in there. So let's take it inside and go the next step. Okay, we got everything back inside in here, and yeah, you might be able to hear it starting to rain outside. Got back just in time. Bicycles and riding in wet pavement is not good. Now here's a little trick you might want to take note of. This is a paint strainer for a 5-gallon paint can. Very fine mesh, and what I do is I put it in the bottom of my media separator bucket here. And yeah, you can go buy one of those magnets from Frankfort, but I just didn't need one more single-use gadget around here. And I had these over in the paint department over there on the other side of the shop. And I said, well, let's give this a try. And I'll tell you what, it's worked out pretty good. You can get these like $5 for a 2-pack or something at Home Depot. And what we're gonna do is take our media separator here, and we're gonna pour everything in there, and the pins will collect in the bottom. Now there's all sorts of these media separators. This just happens to be the one that I have. And what I like about it, it is open on the top. You don't need to get all the pins out, just that's where the pins live. And what I like about it is I'm able to tumble this and kind of see what I'm doing. Whereas if you have an enclosed one, number one, you're not going to be able to make this work, this sifting bag. And you just tumble it slowly. Pretty soon, all those pins are going to make their way down to the bottom. Now if you do this fast, you're going to sling pins out. And I'll do this for maybe a minute, maybe 2. I'm in no hurry, so let me get that done and then I'll show you the results. Okay, looking pretty good here. Take our pin out. See what we got. All right. Nice big pile of brass. See that? And you don't see a lot of soap on there. If there's still soap on here, no big deal. Just close this up, run it through, take the hose to it, rinse it off, and just shake it until you get all the soap. Not a big deal, because you want that stuff to be clean before you go to drying it. Otherwise, you'll just get a bunch of spots. Okay, and here is all of our media, and this thing once again comes in handy. And we'll just let that drain. Then we'll put it back in the tumbler. Now the next thing I do is I take all my brass. I've got this gray tub here and I've got this old towel. I just throw it in here. And what I want to do, this gives me a chance to kind of sort this out and look at it. But the main thing is I want to get excess water off of it. And that's really all I do. But this gives me an opportunity to kind of look over this and just see if I see maybe a 40 caliber snuck in there. What'll happen is, get one. We're doing 38 special and 9mm. It's not a problem because they won't nest, okay? But if, say you got some 40 calibers in there, you're gonna get a lot of this, or you're gonna get a lot of this. And same thing with 380. So 38 special and 9mm you can process together, and then there's some other ones you can process together, but I'll get the errant 380 in here. You know, when you're bending down, looking at the ground, picking up brass, pretty soon everything kind of looks the same, and some will sneak in there. Now the next operation is we're going to put it in the dryer and let it run for, about an hour. Now I know I shared this one tip with you, and that's about using these paint filter bags to filter your stainless steel media in. And like I say, mine's just sitting there still kind of draining, but you're still going to end up with a few pins here and there. I said I didn't want to buy that Frankfort magnet they have. Number one, it's expensive. Number two, it's just another gadget I don't need around here, and I've got plenty of other magnets I could use. But my buddy Dino gave me a real good tip, and he's kind of the guy I hang around with here in the gun community, and the guy that my wife would not like me to hang around with because he's costing me a fortune. But he says, just take a magnet, put it inside a Ziploc bag, and then we got some errant pins down here left over. And it'll pick up all your pins, got some on the floor or whatever, and there they are on the outside of our bag. Then you just take this, stick it inside our bag or the tumbler, whichever one. Reach inside, pull your magnet out, and the pins just drop away. And that's been a good tip, something I already had in stock, don't have to worry about. And by the way, let us know if you know what kind of magnet this is. This is a specialty magnet, and you guys that hang around livestock, I bet know what it is. So put that in the comments below. Our next step is to dry our brass, and since it's pretty darn near dry, it's only going to take about an hour. I've never had to go more than an hour with this. We're going to use the Frankfort Arsenal brass dryer, also known as a food dehydrator. This one has 5 trays, and some of the other ones have 4, and if you're looking at food dehydrators on Amazon or something, they're probably only going to have 4 as well. The price for a food dehydrator was 40 bucks. The price for this was like 47. So this also has temperature control up to 160, which is going to be the temperature you're going to run anyway. And with the 5 trays, I just said, heck with it. Throw that in the pile too, and it's worked really well. Remember when I told you I processed 14 pounds of brass, almost 1,600 rounds? I did it in one shot with this dryer. So all I do is I start at the bottom, just take the brass, and like I say, the more you can get the water off of it, the better. Now I did hear some people, well, actually not some people, one guy kind of knocking this thing. He says, you know, it dried my brass, but it left spots. Well, that's not the dryer's fault. It's could be a combination of the solution that you're running, or just the quality of your water. It might be hard water. Like I said, if you get it rinsed off really good, you're not going to have a whole lot of problems. And this thing does not have a timer on it, so we're going to use one of these. That way I can go off and do other stuff. So let me get the rest of this brass in here, and we'll set it for an hour, and then we'll come back and check on it. It's been about an hour. Let's check out how the dryer did. Oh yeah, way to go. Nice, clean, dry brass. Let's see if you can see just how clean that is on the inside. Looks good for me, and most people would just call this good and get ready to start reloading. But I'd go one step further. I run it through the dry tumbler with a little bit of auto wax in there. And the reason is, I did an experiment here just a while back. My dyes were sticking on my depriming and sizer dye, and then my powder funnel were just starting to stick on me. So I cleaned those, and it was still sticking. And I noticed that I had a group of brass that I'd run through the dry tumbler, but I forgot to put the wax in there. So the wax just kind of slicks it up just a little bit. There's a lot of different things you can put in there, but this, you can get this at any auto parts, Walmart, just about anywhere. And it does make a difference for me in my Dillon press. So like I said, some people will call this good. It is definitely clean, but once I run it through the dry media here, it just seems to work better for me as far as going through the dyes. This is just your standard walnut, crushed walnut, and I get my media over at Harbor Freight. You can get a 20-pound box for $25, and of course everybody has the 20% off coupon, so it's $20 for a box of media. It's going to last you a long time. So before I throw in my brass, I go ahead and I'll put about 4 or 5 dollops of this. Oh, that's a big one. I'll let it circulate for just a little bit before I put my brass in. And like I say, this machine works good top to bottom. But if you get the extra water out before you start, then you're not going to have any brass full of water in there. So let's go ahead and add this in. Now, one other thing I do I noticed when I first started cleaning my brass this way, that see how this is rotating nice? Let me turn it off in just a minute. If this is rotating just like this, and you'll see your brass tumble and everything, if you put too much brass in there, then it just becomes kind of stationary, and that's how you know you have too much brass. And so I just weighed a bunch of mine, and I kept adding it until this thing started to slow down. And it turned out that mine slows down at about 5.5 to 6 pounds. And so I just found a container. I just happen to have one of these from the dollar store. 4 pounds is full, so 4.5 of these would be 6 pounds. And I just put it in there and make sure that it's circulating good. So let me get some of this filled up and we'll put it in here and I'll show you how it works. Okay, I put 4 pounds in so far, and you can see this is circulating just fine. We're going to add in our final 2 pounds, and that's all we're going to put in there. It looks like we're going to have to put in another run. You saw how it slowed down there? But it'll still keep turning. As long as it's turning like this, it'll be fine. Otherwise, if you get too much in there, it'll just stop. And it just won't circulate much at all. And if it's not circulating and tumbling, it's not cleaning the brass. So this works pretty good for me. We're going to run this for an hour since I have so much. And we'll come back and check in an hour. I've never had to go more than 45 minutes or an hour. Since we got quite a bit in there, we're going to go for an hour. 1 hour later, let's take a look at what we have. Now, just for grins, let's see if you'll be able to see any difference. Between the stuff that was just done with the metal media and then the metal media and the dry media. Doesn't look a whole lot different. Matter of fact, it doesn't look much different at all, but it definitely feels different. Feels completely different. So, and that's why I do it. It just seems to go through the dyes a little better. So looks like we got about 3 more pounds to do. Next thing, just dump it here in our media separator. Just like we did with the wet. Slow and easy. They do provide some things that go on the side to keep stuff from splashing up, but I go slow enough that it doesn't matter. And this only takes me, you know, a couple minutes, and when I see no more media falling out, then I know I've got it about where I want. So let me go ahead and finish that up and we'll get back to it. Okay, we're all done here. Let's take a look, see what we got. Got about 6 pounds of fresh brass ready to go. Man, that's just does a great job. And you can feel almost kind of like a dusty feeling there, but much slicker than the undone stuff. So there you have it, folks. That's how I do my brass. A lot of people do it a lot of different ways, and if you have any comments or suggestions, please share it with the class because we'd love to hear from you. So until next time, you guys be safe, keep the muzzle pointed downrange, and we'll see you down the road. Adios.